did like over 250,000 the first week of being around. And
you guys did?
Yes. I just
came from very different backgrounds.
Be classy, be genuine, be grateful.
I wanted to help out and contribute and sort of give back to the people that had helped me.
Man, welcome to the intro. No need for introductions. All about the world and the world what we discussing. Where every single thought that we had came from something. So it's funny that we made it when we started here with nothing. Gotta open up your mind just to find out why. When you lost inside the dark, just gotta turn on the light. And no matter what you do, you never run from a fight. Because we fighting to be better and that's why we strive.
Hi, I'm Corey McCain, CEO of We Strive, the #1 platform for personal trainers, gym owners, and coaches to both manage and scale their business. I'm your host for Why We Strive, where every Tuesday I sit down with some of the most incredible tech founders, investors, and creatives to find out how, when, where, and why they strive. Be sure you tune in every single Tuesday and check us out at whywestrive.com for more info. Now, let's get to this week's episode. So I'm here with Ethan for episode. How do you say your last name, actually?
spell a little odd. I think I got screwed up somewhere with some of the European family coming down and going through Ellis Island. They just wrote it however they thought it sounded.
Okay.
So I think they had enough trouble where they kept rewriting, telling, no, this is wrong, and then just whatever.
Yeah.
So spelled Baehrend, but pronounced Baehrend.
Baehrend, okay.
Yeah, you don't really say the Bay and all that. And then you throw the H in there and it confuses people. So.
Gotcha, okay. So Ethan Baehrend, okay. So every time I go to spell your name, I'm like, I have to go to your LinkedIn because I'm like, I have no idea how to spell this guy's name. So you're one of the biggest and brightest stars here in the tech space. You're also building some crazy stuff in the 3D printing world, and you're here with us today on the Why We Strive podcast. So I would love if you introduce yourself really quick, and then we're going to get down to the nitty gritty of your amazing 3D startup.
Yeah, sounds good. My name's, well, as you mentioned, I already introduced me, Ethan Baehrend, founder and CEO of Create 3 Technologies. Been in the 3D printing space for as long as I could work, but I always very much enjoyed seeing where people take technology. I've always grown up seeing all the headlines of these amazing things happening, and I've always liked making tech, and my whole goal is if I could make a tech that helps empower that, helps people create more of these disruptive and futuristic techs without much constraints, that's what I get excited about.
Very
so
cool.
Making really advanced 3D printers and manufacturing technology platforms.
That's amazing. So yeah, with the 3D printing, so what does... Because like there's typical 3D printing, which you guys don't do. So you're not like a 3D printer that just like can 3D print. You guys are like this massive, like I'm trying to think of a good scale here. I mean, probably actually from here to him to this high to the ground is how big your printer is, right? About that, like give or take?
Yeah, so it is fairly large. I think about 4 foot by about 4 foot. Sometimes it stands a little taller because there's little things that poke upwards.
Gotcha.
Or there's a dome that you can add onto it that puts it up a little too.
Gotcha.
So like 4 to 5 foot by about 2.5 to 3 foot again.
Gotcha. Okay. So what is the purpose?
Perfectly sized to fit through a standard U.S. door.
Hey, there we go. That's all we need. That's actually good thinking. I don't think people.
It's a big problem.
No
You'd
one,
be surprised.
No one builds things thinking of how big the door is.
Or the convenience side. I mean, there's so many printers that tout themselves as portable, and there's one that just always sticks in my mind. We're at a trade show over in Detroit, and it's this massive, big camouflage printer. They're touting it as like highly portable printer for metal parts, like on a field. This thing is the size of like a pickup truck, and consistently there in height. Except it doesn't have any wheels or anything. It's just massive, and you're not moving that anymore.
Yeah, wait, where is that? Who's moving that?
This is pretty stationary. Portable for like a helicopter, always attached to it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you guys. I mean, it seems very portable. But the difference between you guys and these other 3D printing companies is you guys are you're making the 3D printers for other companies, right? That's what the business
Yes,
is?
we manufacture the printers themselves. Sometimes when you say 3D printing company, people think, oh, like I can send you a file, we'll 3D print it. We'll do samples for customers, but we're a little bit competitive with the actual service size. That's a 3D printing service where you send someone a file. Because we have a really disruptive pricing model, and for a lot, especially big parts or more advanced parts, it's oftentimes cheaper for a customer just to buy the printer outright and just click print and walk away. And we've counted it's the exact same amount of clicks on one of our machines as it would be to use an online service that's doing it for you.
Gotcha. So basically, because I usually don't bring up competitors until like way later in the podcast,
Sure.
but it's super relevant for you guys because
it helps
like
paint a picture of the landscape.
Exactly. So like what are you guys doing differently compared to like the typical competitor, and then let's cover pricing and all that stuff.
There's there's a lot to dive into on that front. I think the best way is an analogy one of our salespeople helped make. And I didn't realize how apt of a comparison this is, and it's pretty easy to understand. Look back at paper printing. Back in the day, if you want something printed through paper, you would send that job to a print shop, and they have all the different tools under one roof to make it happen. Whether you want something the size of a business card, they have a tool to do that. Whether you want something the size of like a banner, that's a separate tool that they have. The different colors, like if you're doing business cards, a little felt or the gold trims, different fabrics and materials, all of it, I'm all under one roof to make it happen. And then eventually Xerox starts to come into market, shifts the whole thing, and now there's printers in everyone's office to print those multicolored and like different types of parts and scan them and do whatever. And they brought in a whole ton of specialty machines into one platform, and our, funnily enough, less disruptive first product is a similar shift for 3D printing. Right now, 3D printers are very fragmented, where you need to know what you want to print before buying a printer. You want something the size of this table, great, you buy a large, less precise, large format printer that only does a large, less precise bead of plastic to make your part. And that's all it's good for. You want something closer to the size of your microphone or whatever with standard size precision. That's a job for more standard printer. You want quaint face levels of detail. You want metals, the carbon fibers, the paste materials like ceramics or silicons. You want even like foods or like even feature sets, like having something be fully IoT connected for the future manufacturing. All those are things that essentially define their own sub-markets of 3D printer. And if you want to buy just one of them, like back to the big printer, if you have a $50,000 budget, there's 1 to 2 companies you tend to go to around that price point. And you want it for $70,000, different competitor. So even though from an outside look it looks very colluded and competitive, it's a lot less so in my opinion.
It's very broken into like price points kind of thing and what they do
by function and price. I'm very divided. Some companies will make a couple different printers that have their own separate function, factor into those different price points, but it's rarer that printers start to cross that gap at all, because technologically it is tough. Through a traditional approach to it, if you want to make, say, a large printer just does large, less precise parts, there's a whole set of challenges.
If you want to make a what, sorry?
Large printer that just does larger, less precise parts. There's a whole set of challenges you and your team need to overcome to make that happen. And usually the solution to that is large motors, large rails, and everything large to make that work. And if you want to make a printer that did fine detail parts, different set of challenges with a different set of solutions. If you want to make a printer that does the two functions, not only do you have double the work going into it, but the hardware and the solutions to make those machines functional are contrary to each other. You want the large rails, the large motors are very contrary to the fine precision rails, motors, etc. So if you want a printer that does two, you have 3 times the amount of work because you have a whole new set of challenges that come from combining them.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the more and more types of printing you add, it just goes up exponentially. You want to do 3 functions, it turns into 5. And all the solutions to make other things work for each other just keep competing with each other, and to the point that if you want to make something that's really all-encompassing, it just doesn't make sense.
Gotcha, okay. Because you'd have like 1,000 different things.
Yeah, so you really need to approach it from a completely new outside-the-box method to make it happen, and that's what we did. We're kind of, our intro to the market, we're coming in with an entire suite of 10 plus separate specialty printing functions in one modular platform. So as printing continues to evolve, so does the printer. We've built it to satisfy the speeds, precisions, the details, the electronics, everything to back it to essentially be any type of 3D printer. The major modular, so even 5 years down the line, someone can come back to us, swap on the latest printing tech, and you're good to go.
Very cool.
Or even if in the first year it goes from being 10 plus functions to over 13, because we're continuing to add new functions and different features to it. So
Brex is the all-in-one financial toolkit for every scaling business. With products built for scrappy startups, expanding mid-market companies, and large international enterprises, Brex has a suite of financial products that caters to the uniqueness of your business. If you're a founder or overseeing spend in a large organization, Brex keeps your team spending within policy, on budget, and housed in a single dashboard, saving you time, money, and stress. With everything from free interest-yielding bank accounts and corporate cards to expense management and budgeting, and so much more. Brex is your go-to all-in-one financial platform for scaling your business. That's amazing. And so you guys have one product, or you have multiple, like different sizes?
One product of different modules that you can swap onto it.
Okay, what's your most popular, like what's a typical model that you guys would sell?
So, little bit of background. We started in the market with a printer called Duo.
Okay.
And Duo's idea was what I just described. And since then, because we've just had so much progress during COVID, and instead of sitting idle, we made strives. And
well, but convenient for you because you are the guy that builds it. So
yes.
you weren't like out of cash to hire people. You were like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, I genuinely started all this out of a true passion. If I had, I think if I had resources to pursue whatever I want, whether it's just traveling, gaming, whatever, I'm fairly certain I'd be right back to where I am, because this is what was filling my time even before I was making any money.
Exactly.
I thoroughly enjoy it. I've always liked making printers and parts that just make the machines themselves better, and I'm going no constraints, making the best platform I can. That's always been exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been exciting to see it in full solution, but now we've been setting up a new production line up in Northeast Austin, like real close to here.
Yeah.
And we're going to be producing Duo Evo, which will be releasing in January. So essentially that all-in-one suite, but pushed to even more limits, implementing a lot of the technologies we developed over COVID and implementing a lot of exciting hardware and components that came out during that time frame too.
Gotcha.
So pushing that limit, and even though it's a jack of all trades, it's not falling into the issue of being a master of none. Because not only are we better in each single specialty we encompass, but we're more affordable in each specialty. So if you just want a large print, you don't care about 900 types of printing. Unbeknownst to you, we're still combining different types of printing and their functions to empower and bolster the one method.
Gotcha.
But we can print that part faster, stronger, with greater outer finish for 80% less. You want to do metals, we're 95% less than the closest competitor to us in metals, and typically there's powders and all these different tools you need to make a metal part, and there's a lot of waste associated with it. So we eliminate 90% of the waste. We mix different metals in the same part and make complex parts which just weren't possible in the past, and I'm better in that one function for a lot less, and each function better, cheaper, and better platform to do it in. So our outside the box approach ended up being better at most things.
Wait, well, why do you guys charge so much less if you not if you, I know you do have a better product, but like why do you guys, when you know you could charge more, like why do you charge more?
There's a couple factors into that. On a personal level, it goes back to trying to empower that creativity and ability to create. It's a limitation of some of these prices. Like we were at a trade show, we were looking at some of these machines, and someone that was competitive us in two metals, both 316L stainless steel and 17.4. Popular, they're all over the place, and they can do pretty similar parts to what we can, except they can't do some of the internal structures we can. And that same machine costs $1.2 million. And
how much do you guys charge?
$10,000. And required.
Did they just fucking hate you or what? If I were them, I'd be like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, really?"
And it just does the two metals. Unlike
so you guys
them,
do
we
more
can
than
do
them.
titanium, tungsten, Inconel, even like messing around with like borosilicon, some interesting stuff, and merging them. Like we've been messing around with doing steel parts with little Inconel strands inside them to reinforce it. And no one's really been able to combine those metals before, because you can't mix all those different powders with the powder method of printing. Gotcha. But it just does these two functions. I think, can it do titanium? Like, theoretically, but it's not safe. We wouldn't recommend that you do so. And that tends to be the case with a lot of the printers. And a tool like that could massively help someone, because 3D printers are the way to make parts and shapes you just can't make on any other production method. You bring a part into a computer and tell it to optimize it. The computer is able to design the most efficient structure, and sometimes you're able to make things that are like 50% stronger but 30% lighter. Gotcha. Because you've just generated this complex structure that couldn't ever be made before. And a tool like that can empower a lot of creativity, even on a startup side. I want a startup to be able to imagine something, buy a unit, not go into crazy debts or anything, and just go from idea to prototype to final part to light batch production all in one machine. That's awesome. And I like, again, empowering that ability to create, but a bit of it's also market strategy. Yeah. To make the printer that we've made, we've taken a very outside the box approach. I see 3D printers, again, as a way to make parts that can't be made in another method. if you're building a machine to outperform what's traditionally manufacturable, why should you limit the printer itself to those same shapes you're building to overcome? I am sure it's convenient, but that's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
So instead, we designed the printer to meet the actual functions we wanted, and
You're good.
meet the functions we wanted. And if it wasn't manufacturable, that's fine. I mean, we're making a manufacturing tool and method. We'll just make sure that our machine's the only thing that's out there that can do that. Or we'll build a completely custom tool from the ground up using those shapes and put on a completely proprietary in-house production line. So our own line's the only way we can make some of the really unique parts that have all these strengths that pull everything together and have the lightness and everything that we need to.
And why did you come up with this? Because, like, I mean, I know you've been in the space for a long time, but did one day you just go like, why is no one doing this for less? Was it like a price thing, or was it like, why is no one just doing all these things in one? Or what made you get to where you are right now?
It was somewhat unintentional. I had a business before this that had a pretty heavy hand in the industry where right when 3D printing came out, patents dropped, we were buying a lot of printers broken because...
Is we like your business or like...
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. Gotcha.
Eventually scaled into we. Initially was just an eye though.
Gotcha, okay.
That eye started if I saw a $250 printer broken down, this thing's typically a lot more expensive.
Like a 3D printer to clarify?
Yes, 3D printer.
Gotcha, okay.
Most of the time when I say printer, I'm going to mean 3D
I know.
If I mean anything else, I say paper printer.
Gotcha,
because
okay.
at this point, I refer to 3D printers way more than I do the paper ones.
Gotcha, that checks out. Okay, gotcha.
We were joking, and it's funny, the HP paper printer in our office is less reliable than our 3D printers.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, just start 3D printing our documents, 2 different colors. That'd be fun.
Like little like 3D document. That'd be cool, actually.
Start handing people plastic tablets.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We could. We're thinking of doing little business cards. Print the logo, like the same logo, and then have the info on the back.
That'd be really cool.
In a couple colors.
I mean, that makes sense. You're like, this is my business card, and this is our product. We made this.
This is our business card. Here's a demo.
Yeah, exactly. that's I actually really like that. Very cool. We were saying. So why did you get started with those? So you mentioned the printer and
unintentional.
Yeah.
And the previous business was refurbishing. I bought my first one for $250. I knew what was wrong with it because I already had a printer by then, and
gotcha.
I knew 3D modeling. I knew everything else to go with it. I saw it, I'm like, I can fix this. And it's dirt cheap because no one else was buying it. And the industry had really just started to kick off because prior to that, 2 companies owned the whole industry and held it patented.
What year is this?
Oh gosh, like
2017, 2018?
No.
Really?
And patents dropped close to like 2012-ish.
Oh, damn. I didn't see one until 2016, I don't think.
There were some very much not so functional ones at the time, but so I thought I could fix it. So I bought it, spent about $50 for parts, and printed other parts that weren't functioning. And then for under 2 hours of work, I was able to sell it off for over $3,000.
Very cool. Okay.
And that's what really started rolling the business. Was no one else is doing this. Let me get started. And that enabled me to buy more and more printers until there's other staff, there's help there, and we were buying the broken, fixing them up, and instead of buying the parts from the OEMs and taking the effort to write the emails and wait those lead times, we just redesigned the parts, and a lot of times as you're redesigning a part anyway, just make it better.
Yeah.
So we'd add new features, new functions, made it more reliable, and then sell that directly to customers, anywhere from the hobbyist out of his garage doing RC car parts to the Argentinian military.
Very cool.
So I was seeing the absolute worst of these printers. I knew how to fix them. I knew how to make them better, and we were selling directly to customers. You saw the full industry cycle. You knew what they wanted. You knew their frustrations with these printers, and because OEMs became a little bit dependent on that, we started to get a lot more information, which we probably have at the moment.
Gotcha.
And eventually we were almost a bit of an innovation arm because those printers we made better, a lot of times we'd start to, this is mostly later on after we had done it for a while, and started to offer those developments like, hey, offer back to the OEM. Or we're going to go to your close competitor, which might have an application for this.
Nice.
And in that same sense, we became a bit of an innovation arm for some businesses out there too. And if you look at printing, it's almost like the cell phone market in a way, where it's incremental changes. For example, if an Apple phone, you put one more camera on it, and then that's one of the biggest hardware differences. Of course, there's a lot more on the software side, but and it's more of an incremental change on the hardware side instead of a big leap. And it's very similar in 3D printing, and we were able to be the source of a lot of those incremental changes for a lot of different companies for a while.
That's so cool.
But we're trying to scale that, and I had a lot of different printers that print a lot of different parts. We were doing a lot of electronics cases that fit on the side of these printers that put new custom electronics in them. These are big cases, and the best way to do that is a large printer, and that large printer does large, less precise parts. It does not have the precision for me to drop an electronics board in there, snugly fit it, and screw it into place, because that resolution is a more standard printer's job. So even in just that one example, I had to print 2 separate parts on 2 separate printers and glue them together and hope it worked.
So you're saying one printer made big things, one made them precise?
Yes.
Gotcha,
so one made smaller, precise things that fit into the big things.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
And I wanted to streamline a lot of that. So we started making one of the first printers actually did more than just a single function. And even with the not so functional proof of concept and not so techie suburban Chicago, people wanted to buy it on the spot. And that's when I realized, even though I'm a lot younger, the education's there. We know the whole industry. We have a lot of information because we are deep embedded within it.
Yeah.
We know the customers. We've seen the absolute worst, and I've studied heavily the rise and fall of all these businesses throughout the 5+ year timeline. Let's do it. And eventually that scaled into Creative 3D.
That's awesome. I mean, I have like 18 questions, so we're trying not to get to them. So from the origin of like 3D printers, what were people printing then? And then like we'll say so that's 2012, so 10 years ago. That's actually convenient. And then 2017, what were they printing? And then what are they printing now? Like what was like the common use case for a 3D printer from middle, beginning, and end?
I think initially when it first emerged and when public eyes were first on it, there were some industrial printers, but they also kind of spewed out not so functional parts. But it was a better way than just going the traditional prototyping route, because you're paying China tens of thousands of dollars for custom molds and everything, and you're virtually simulating, and you're hoping to God it works at the end of the day. If you need to do any changes, that's tough. That's expensive. That can throw a company under. So it's always been a lot of prototyping, and that's still very consistent. More than 40% of the industry is prototyping at the moment.
Gotcha.
But it's a more efficient way to do so, because design it, click print, have a part. Well, that's what people would advertise as the final process. That's our process, but it's a lot more heavy for other printers. There's all these maintenancing, prep steps, and things like that. But it's been a lot of prototyping. When the public first started to hear about in 2012 when the patents dropped, it was more on a consumer side where people thought, oh, this is going to be in everyone's house. This is going to be the next paper printer. And it's going to take a pretty big innovation to be that. And at that time, it was a lot of little trinkets, little knickknacks, little statues, figures, things like that. And
when I saw it in 2016, it was a guy I knew was just making little like things. Like it wasn't anything like you guys wouldn't do.
Well, the industrial side's always been a lot quieter of it. It's been a massive tool that's really pivoted industries. It's a massive marketplace as well. It's worth quite a bit, and it's been growing at insane rates.
Yeah.
But it's not something everyone's hearing about because it's not as relevant to the consumer side. So the consumer magazines and everything, they're not going to be publishing articles about it unless you hear every now and then like the crazy stuff like, oh, we're printing rocket engines and like human body parts and things like that too. And sometimes those headlines sneak in, but for the most part, had a big press wave and then kind of died down a bit. But it's been making massive waves on the industrial side. What's manufacturable? Sometimes it's being used for more final parts now, but I just completely changed how things are designed and how things are produced on a small scale.
Yeah. So I know you're really smart, and like anyone that runs a 3D printing company has to be intelligent. So, but my question is, and this might be hard to answer, maybe it's really easy to answer. Are you just that much smarter than all these fucking guys running these companies? Because like if you're doing it for 10,000, what they're doing for 1.2 million, and they have like I know you don't have a lot of staff. Like I know it's mostly you doing this stuff. I mean now less, but
we've scaled a decent bit.
Well, now less, but like earlier on when you were already doing it, it was pretty much you. So like, are you just literally that much smarter than these people? Is that like I know it's a weird question to ask, but like someday it's like, what's your competitive advantage? You're like, I'm just fucking smarter than all these people.
Not because of any natural gift, and not because of any lack of effort. I only got to hear through genuine passion and effort. And when people say passion nowadays, it's typically referring to, this is my preferred career. This is what I like to be my job.
Like my passion's marketing.
When I'm saying passion, it's like I was mentioning earlier. If I could do anything, I think I'd be right back here. And again, it was filling up my free time. I enjoyed this stuff, and it's awesome to be able to do it. But having what you love also be in your main job, it's hard to strike a balance. And experience is a measure of time. And given that most of the industry start at the same time, I have put more hours into it and put more time into it than anyone else has, because for 4 years trying to build this company, I was sleeping every man cycle, which is 4 hours of sleep per night plus 2 3-minute naps in a day, so I could work 120 hours a week.
But you were like technically optimizing your time intentionally, like kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or it just happened that way?
It sucks to get used to, because for a while you'd just be out like that.
Yeah.
But once you are, those 3-minute naps are productivity boosts. And
you say 30 or 3?
30.
Okay. I was like, geez.
2 30-minute naps. So you got 5 hours of sleep per day.
Gotcha, okay.
And the rest was work.
Wow,
So in between education, researching, and then building the company to structure and prototyping, it took a lot, because we had to design a design method that went against a lot of what engineering schools teach you isn't manufacturable. Design a production method to make those parts, and then make the print. If that didn't work, restart. It took 280 plus iterations to get right until we cracked that formula of this is it, this is how we can manufacture. And the reason that it's so much less expensive is because of that manufacturing method. We designed it to be crazily efficient, both in human capital and how many people are working these workstations, in efficiency. I mean, it's $250,000 for us to double production if we want to.
Very cool.
And it's easy to scale up, easy to scale down, because I prepare from everything plants A through H, and even though we're an affordable product, we have pretty solid margins for it as well. It's surprising for a hardware product, especially given the stark price difference. And a bit of that is, again, the production method, but also market strategy. I mean, we know a lot about the market, and we see that's growing at over 30% year over year. There's a lot of folks saying that closer to 2026, it's going to be over 63 billion, and it's currently upwards of 16 right now.
Gotcha.
Because of mass adoption. People are going to China saying, hey, I need these parts made. I know this geometry is producible now, and they have to say, well, we don't have the tools.
Gotcha.
So there's mass adoption of technology and people starting to make it for final products. And if you have a product that's going to take a couple years for someone to make a direct competitor to, because it's that much further ahead, and if our rate of innovation is high, we can continue to innovate and build upon that. But we also get to corner the market for a short time, become an instant industry leader. And that's what we've seen a lot of times demand-wise. And shows that people are saying, these were kind of slow. We've been overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
And so speaking of journeys, like how is your product, because I know that it's a hard question to ask because there's so many different, you said 280 plus way more after that probably. So from the moment, and not when you did that thing in 2012, but the moment that you guys were 3D creative and you guys were like live, people bought a product, how much has it changed since that first purchase till now?
It's changed quite a bit. It's mostly because we just had some awkward timing, and we started to hit the market mid to later 2019, which is why a lot of our media and a lot of our market and presence is out there. And then we did over 250,000 the first week of being around. And
you guys did?
Yes. Just from going to some shows, and at these shows, you can't get close to these printers, much less touch them.
Yeah.
Some companies, they'll send out engineers to watch every line of code and make sure this thing's actually functioning. Versus, I didn't have much sales knowledge. I was telling people, interact with it.
Yeah.
It was more of a design test for me. I wanted to see if someone could break it. Interact with it. If something breaks, don't worry about it. I'll get back to you in a week, not only fixing it, but improving upon it. I'll show you why.
Very cool.
And the thing's built like a tank. People loved it. It got hands-on interactions, and it got a lot of interest early on.
Okay.
And that's why we were able to get a lot of that traction. And you couldn't really do much in terms of the small, tiny, basically out of a bedroom production stuff that was there. But we were able to move a few and gain more interest, and then showed a couple more shows. And then, after that, we're like, okay, we need to scale this. So early time, tail end of 2019, early 2020, moved down to Austin, have all this demand. We're going to leverage this demand.
Where'd you move from? Sorry.
Chicago.
Gotcha. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's
where my girlfriend's from. Yeah. Cool. Sorry.
Yeah, we were going to move out here, leverage that demand, raise capital, set up our production line much bigger, and hit the ground running. COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Me locked in a room with only this printer and also our virtual staff to try to help with a lot of this.
Had you moved yet or no?
Yes.
You had just moved.
I had just moved.
Nice.
Not knowing anyone, I'm being locked in, all that. Basically, it was a work apartment. I had a tiny corner for the bed. Everything else was printers, hardware, test benches, and everything else.
Nice.
And it was just me kind of going over and over on it and seeing what things we can improve upon. And there's been so many leaps and bounds made during that time frame that it wouldn't make sense for us not to release it as a new product name. And that's why we're releasing Evo in January.
So cool. And so wait, what is going to be the biggest difference between, I think you might have mentioned this already, but between Evo and your current product, what's the difference?
There's quite a bit. In
There's
terms of
more, it's probably like a lot.
Yeah. I'll keep it briefer.
Yeah.
In terms of looks alone, we've made things a lot more sleeker, refined a lot of the wiring, the function, the interfaces. On top of that, and we've really cranked up the speed. We're talking hundreds of millimeters a second. I'm really whipping these tools around.
That's
made
crazy.
it so easy that you can swap anything from like a paste extruder that extrudes paste, pellet extruders, carbon fiber, and whatever function of printing you want. It's super simple. It's one pull off, and then you just plop the other thing on and connect one wire, and that's it.
Okay.
And then we already identify what's connected to there, and it's doing all the functions, and it's faster, it's more precise, it's more reliable, it's easier to use, kind of hits all the marks.
That's it. I'm excited to take this pod. That's why you got to watch on video, guys. Because like people are gonna be like, "What is he fucking talking about?" So we're gonna in the first 3 minutes, I'll have a video of the products, then we can see how it works, and people can be like, "Okay," then they'll keep up the rest of the episode. It's like audio wise, I feel bad for everyone. It's like there's so many things that you guys can do.
Imagine I'll try to describe a visual of that.
There we go.
A tool head for a printer is typically composed of a couple of components, and it can fit into about 6 inch tall by 3 to 4 inch wide by 3 inch deep. Cube, kind of enclosed a little bit with fans in it, some wires and some boards on it, and we've made it.
What kind of a printer do you mean? You mean the
most
3D printer?
any type of printer.
3D printer.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
3D printer. There's a little thing on it that does most of the magic.
Gotcha.
All the rest of it's computers and motors and belts that are slinging that thing around.
Gotcha.
But the tool head's what's actually pushing out the material.
Gotcha.
And we have all these different tool heads that can push out all these different specialty materials, and we've made it so easy that it's just a quick clamp, like literally just place the thing in place, hook up one wire, and then your printer's capable of doing a completely new function.
So cool. I love that, man. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. What kind of, I don't even know if this is a million answers to this. What kind of things can you build? Like, what can you build, like a car, or do you just have to make? Could you build a car if a car was the size to fit inside that 4x4 frame?
Funny you should mention that. We have another, as I alluded to earlier, the Duo and Evo are both our larger entries into the marketplace, though they're not the most disruptive thing we have in the pipeline. We've got quite a bit bigger, and we've got stuff that's started to turn the heads of world governments, saying this isn't just an industry disruptor, but this can disrupt full supply chains and even certain economies, which is exciting to have. It's another thing we unintentionally stumbled upon too.
Love that.
Funnily enough, but we're releasing that closer to 2025 or 6, and the debut model for it is an almost entirely printed car, including the ECU wiring, like the door, printed in metal, then autonomously painted, polished, smooth, dropped in the glass, the motor, and route silver ink in between the layers, and essentially on one module. And we've been designing out the door and everything, so on the one module, instead of needing a whole assembly line, end-to-end make that door, which is kind of crazy.
So
and
this
has a
model
much deeper topic to jump into.
So this new printer could print a car, and I could just get into it with a key and just turn on the car, or
it'll be a couple assembly, because it's not large enough to fully make one-on-one, but you can essentially take it from being, I'm not sure, thousands and thousands of pieces to being under 100 large pieces, because that door you could just bolt on 4 screws, and then it's there. It's done. And that's we just designed out the scripts for that. Want to start testing a bit of that, and it's gonna be awesome to see that happen. So some stuff it won't make as much sense for us to print, like the shocks or the struts or some of the springs, because it'd be hard to put in a gas, and I don't know how to do any of that. Thankfully, we have a lot of automotive partners that can help in some of those areas, but we'll be printing as much as we can, because at a lot of these shows I'll see cars there, and it's because we printed this one part or this little bit. We're saying because you can't, we're gonna do the whole thing as much as we can.
I love that. Who's your typical target market? Are you working with a Ford, or are you working with Amazon, or a consumer? Who are you working with?
I can't give too many specific names out.
Oh, sorry. Type of Ford-esque.
I think there's a lot of fake market divides in the market, like I thought. Like I was mentioning, metals are their own sub-market. Different functions, different specialties, different features are all their own sub-markets. Those, in my opinion, are artificial dividers. They don't need to be dividing the industry. If you can not do so through technology. The real divider is price. And I think there's 3 price tiers of customer. There's a sub $10,000 consumer. It's not an everyday consumer, but within that price range, you'll see startups, hobbyists, engineers, prototypers, people kind of doing stuff out of garage. That
they're like
price
early
point.
Ethans, basically. Just like, they're
A couple of them, yeah.
We could do like a whole timeline of you growing
We've
up.
seen
like,
all
in
sorts of
different
stuff. Even like cosplayers make costumes and stuff. They'll have a lot of these tools just at their disposal. And if they're doing Etsy shops and things, it's an excellent tool for them.
Very cool.
And 10,000 tends to be like that top of the line there.
Yeah.
And especially if they want something good that's going to last them a long time. There's the sub $50,000 middle market of small and medium businesses, research labs, universities, prototypers, machine shops, things like that. I think that's probably one of the largest segments in the market just because of how many businesses are out there.
Yeah. And
then there's the 50,000 and up industrial market of militaries, fortune companies, and everything. And thankfully with Duo's line of printers and Evo, the objective is to build a reputation of all of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
As a good quality product, so in future machines like the one we're aiming towards 2026 can specialize in each market because we've already built a reputation in it.
Yeah.
So Duos are priced perfectly to hit the very highest end of that consumer market, be perfectly priced and function for that middle market while outperforming the industrial market.
So Duo will be closer to that 50K kind of range-ish?
Duo is 8,800 when we used to manufacture it. We suspended orders on Duo, and we've been pivoting them to Duo Evo orders now.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking
and
Evo was
Duo
the new
Evo
one.
is at a $10,000 price point, and then the one we're talking about, 2026, is looking like it's going to be closer to 50,000.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry. I thought Evo was I thought Duo was the new one. It's Duo and then Duo Evo. Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, it's Duo's what we're labeling the line of 3D printers. So
gotcha.
Duo, the OG, was the first one, and
Nice.
Duo Evo's the evolution of it, and then there'll be submodels of it like Evo HT for like especially high temperature, typically non-printable materials and things like that.
I love that.
That's the naming scheme.
No, that's cool. That's such a crazy price point for you guys to do all that stuff for these massive companies. So, how hard would it be for someone to just blatantly copy what you guys are doing?
It's tough. First of all, there'd be a lot of IP issues behind that.
Sorry, can we take a step back? What do you guys have patents on all this stuff, or what do you have?
I think you have to take an interesting approach with 3D printing, especially if you're trying to market to any extent in that consumer market.
Okay.
Because if we look historically, there's been a lot of trouble with open and closed source in 3D printing. The 3D printing movement has grown to the extent it has because of a semi-open nature in the industry, where consumers like me would buy these printers and I can make this better. I can print this part to make it better. And then a lot of times, like me, they share those innovations back. As long as they got a little bit of credit, that's what they cared about.
Yeah, moving the industry forward. Basically.
And it helped push the industry. Yeah. But the problem was certain companies who are fully open at first, which I don't think is the correct approach either, fully open, no IP, got copied one-to-one by China. And then the copies came out and they took the full 180 and went to fully closed source. And a lot of the community that built them up in the first place didn't like that, so that's why there's been movements to stop a lot of that.
Gotcha.
And if you want to build a reputation there, it's good to be able to support a lot of that, because not everyone's going to have a 3D printing function that you know of. There's people that are looking at our platform right now saying, hey, because you have this crazy level of precision, you have all these speeds, this would be perfect for a bioprinter. Can we have files so we can adapt our syringes and petri dishes onto your printer?
Yeah.
That would be a customer we couldn't have unless we were semi-open. So we keep it open to customers to actually buy the printer, but we have licensing that protects each of the individual design files.
Gotcha.
And a lot of those design files, again, can't be manufactured any other way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thankfully, and we have the entire production line keeping a lot of those crazier machines trade secret, which is helpful, and we don't share any of how we made any of those anywhere.
Cool.
And on top of that, there's certain parts that are within it that are crucial to the machine's function that do have patents in it through our partners. And it's a good approach that has proven to be defensible on an international scale, even in places like China that have a history of copying a lot of products, while still keeping it open enough to expose yourself to more customers and empowering those hobbyists.
That's awesome.
So that's how we're initially starting, and then moving forward after we built a relationship showing that we're willing to be open to customers, we'll start to move on to defensive patents while still being open to paying customers again, but still it gives us a higher tier of protection in people trying to take something, copy it, and then sell it directly. But again, it's hard to do so if you don't know the production line, if you don't know how it was made, and even if you try to do so, there's IP issues behind it also. It's going to take a while, and we've had folks spend a lot of money. We caught wind of folks that had projects that spent a lot of money trying to do so before saying we can't get this done. So I mean, if that's not reaffirming, I'm not sure what is.
That's so they were just trying to basically copy what you guys were doing.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
And they're like,
they don't have an Ethan, man. What are they gonna do? Yeah. So when you first started off, were you handling the product sales, like basically being an OG CEO, solo founder, or like what was the original team like?
A bit. Folks assume upon a first glance that Creative 3D, especially if they were looking at like an investment perspective, that there was only me. And for a while it was that, and for a decent bit of time it was that. And especially on the development side, it's pretty much all been me early on. Though that hasn't been the case because there's a large network of people that are super supportive of me, my projects, what I'm doing, and I believed in me in the last business and are believing in me now, and they've told I'm a lot of pro bono, advisory help, mentorship, and active partnership in a lot of ways has been really helpful and made up for that lack of team early on. And even investors, we've almost every single investor on our cap table has signed on to be a fully active partner.
Cool.
And even the first one told us and signed off on whatever you need on an as-needed basis. When I said, I need y'all to share your team and train people on our product and send them to a trade show, they offered it, what I needed. Graphic design, marketing, and all this different stuff. They've been a resource and put in a lot of effort without it being expense to us. So it's been a lot more supportive and a lot less lonely than might look from an initial view, but it has heavily been me and all that because it's still coordinating all those lighter commitments to help.
Gotcha.
And so that's scaled quite a bit now. I've been very fortunate to almost put together their dream team. I feel, especially when 3D printing goes to a smaller industry, it's hard to find other people that have put the level of time, dedication, experience into something and can rival that experience-wise. Though I've been able to find people that, in my opinion, are better than me in their own specialties, and that is the best thing to find.
In 3D printing itself, or just like in marketing and that kind of stuff?
In each of their specialties, marketing, sales, even on the development side too.
Very cool. Okay. All right. Very cool. Okay. So Drew Belcock couldn't be here. He's in Arkansas. Priorities. I don't know why you'd be in Arkansas for priorities, but he had one question. So he wants to know how long until you can just literally print anything on your computer, on your 3D printer?
2026.
Thanks, Drew, for this shitty question. No, just kidding. So
I can give a short summary on that because we can't go into too much detail, but people that know where to look, I guess, can find some of the information I'll mention. We've been stepping up from just 3D printing. We're seeing how we can improve it. And again, we saw 3D prints have layers. So what if we mix in subtractive manufacturing and milling to smooth those as you build up? What if you add in machine learning so you can qualify the parts, like compare each layer to the actual visual output of what the computer simulated that'll look like and learn off it, and if not self-correct, and the more you print the same part, make it more efficient. But we've just kind of saw that we made the absolute most no compromise platform and speed, precision. We're talking about single micron encoded tolerance. I'm poking a 1 micron down one side, moving like 3 feet per second to another core, and then touching that same dot again. I'm crazy platform, and then really innovated upon it and swapping technology to actually encompass different types of manufacturing. If you encompass different types of manufacturing and bring them into that layer by layer process that is 3D printing, you can make some insane parts where never before possible. And we're talking about effectively being able to produce anything from like a full drone end to end, including electronics, wiring, and we're talking about even producing semiconductors in some ways, producing boards, like taking a 12-inch by 12-inch board and turning it into a 3-inch by 3-inch cube, and painting parts, smoothing parts, sintering parts, and or even we're starting to look at different modules because again, there's uses outside of what I know and what I'm proficient in. Well, we've been partnering with a lot of really disruptive companies in their own industries that make these excellent tools that do their one function. And because we're an efficient platform to really pull it all together, and there's even medical modules, and people are considering doing personalized medicine on there because in terms of affordability, we essentially put a factory in a box, and we're as efficient as in terms of cost per product, we're beating a lot of centralized manufacturing because we're taking out tens of millions of dollars in machinery, the supply chain, all the pollution, the waste associated with it, and doing so a lot more sustainably and a lot more efficiently in shapes that were never before manufacturable.
That's so cool.
So that is the slightly longer teaser. There's a whole lot more to it, but that is as simple as I can make it.
Well, we'll do another podcast in 2026, and we'll go through that. And you talking answered or brought my question back that I forgot 10 minutes ago. And I brought this up with my last interview with Abigail. So as a CEO, as a founder, like you constantly are just like, oh, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And then one day you go like, all right, we need to focus. When these people are like, we want to do medical and this, we want to do that and this, like, are you going to do all of these things because your printer is so easy to do them? Or is there a limit where you're like, that doesn't really make sense for us to do this? Like,
there are certain things, but they're not... There's a bit to that question.
Yeah, there's two sides for sure.
It's always fun to say, you know everything, you can do everything, but I'm not one to be... That's not my philosophy. That's not something I follow. And I unfortunately have the problem because this company is so thought through every potential bad scenario and everything that if we're talking, like we've had it in the past, we've talked to investors, and it almost comes across as cocky. And I never mean it to, but everything that I say is something that we've already been able to back and prove. Yeah. And that's the difference. I am very results driven. Unless there's a result to back it, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to act like I know it or we can do it. And that's what I was saying, like on that 2026 unit, it can do quite a bit. And like on the medical side, I don't know nothing. I know nothing about it. And I'm not going to act like I can. That's why we partner with a company that does know how to and says this platform's excellent for it. I am not one to... Well, I surround myself with the best knowledge, advisory, and mentorship in all the areas I don't know, and I'm not afraid to delegate. Cool. And that's been one of the issues. So, not want to say know it all, but for a lot of 3D printing, a lot of printing applications, it really is a one-stop shop, and that's always been the aim. But certain things don't make much sense. Like if you're trying to print concrete, I'm sure we can extrude concrete. It's not going to make sense if you want to make a house fit. Gotcha. Maybe a small structure, something, sure. But as someone, because everyone always mentions the house printing whenever printing's mentioned, we're not going to say we can print a house with that specific machine. Gotcha. Okay. And there's certain limitations to them, but we've really refined the platform and functionality enough that they're a bit on the extremes. Gotcha. Okay. So in 3D printing, there's no real limit to what you guys can create, basically. There are certain like geometric limitations. There's certain things we get very technical. Yeah. But as a platform for us, we see it as a way to open up a lot of avenues that typically weren't manufacturable through a completely new out-of-the-box approach to how we can manufacture it and how we can make these complex internal structures that make that part possible. Okay, very cool. You can't defy gravity. You can't break laws of physics. So we are bound by that unless we send the printers into space, which we can operate in no gravity. Nice, but like I said, they're on the extreme end. As long as it's a physical product, there's a lot of times a way that we might be able to help. Very cool. And how many of those machines have you guys made? The current duos, how many have you made so far? So like I said, duos just had awkward timing. We had a pretty limited run in it because we did a few of them, and then we were ready to scale up and leverage our demand to get into production, and it couldn't happen just timing all. So right now we're scaling up to make a whole lot more, and we're making a lot of Evos for our own production line right now. Cool. And that'll be exciting. I think we're going to have upwards of 40 of them in our space. Do you use your own 3D printer to make the 3D printers? Yes. So that's what I was mentioning. Well, that's so cool. It's a statement. Yeah. It shows you trust your own product enough to print more of your own product. Wow. It's a continuous 24/7 stress test. We're going to run into an issue more likely before a customer does. And we're so modular and flexible that we can change our entire production line to make essentially a lot of things within a day. Yeah. Or if we need to push out an update, we can easily wirelessly push out. It's constant stress test. It's using your own machine. It's good to have. And That's so it's cool. Easy for the team to learn, interact with them because you have all them there. It's a resource too. It's it's helpful, and we're hoping to be a resource kind of like for the local community as well with some of those too.
I'm glad I asked that because that didn't even pop into my head until just now. Like, how cool is that your own product makes you're like building a clone army, like just like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how we can. That's one of the reasons why we can scale up so easily, and one of the biggest, a lot of the biggest parts that really bring all together the parts that we're buying from other OEMs and having pre-manufactured are the printed parts, and those are the most manufactured. Just print more printers or print more of these custom in-house production tools to make more of them. So
very cool.
That's what I'm saying. It's very quick to scale up or scale down.
And are you were you bootstrapped when you started this? Because like we mentioned again, like you could just do it yourself. You didn't really need like other people to pay for stuff. So you start off bootstrapped. Like how you don't have to say how much you raised, but unless you want to. And then like what round are you guys at? Are you raising more? Like where are you at now? Yeah,
we did a pre-seed right when the company was founded because we've had folks that said right when you do something venture, right when you do something that I can get in on, I want to be there. Gotcha. And those are some of our earliest and my honestly best supporters.
Awesome.
And that's been excellent around the time. So we did raise some initially, but it's been a lot of financial commitment from my side too. And thankfully the funds from the previous business and things like that helped, but when you're doing hardware and you're doing a lot of iteration development, it only goes so far. So we had some raise, and that was mainly to develop this idea to a functional proof of concept, and then not only verify but quantify the demand and market for it, because there hasn't been a real direct comparison yet.
Gotcha.
And then after that, it was once that was validated, we could then raise a larger seed round because the best way to produce this is having a full production line set up and not trying to do so out of a garage, though we could if we wanted to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Was to leverage the demand that we were able to generate to scale things up, set up production line, hit the ground running. So we had a recent seed round that we did a really good job overfunding, had a lot of demand. A lot of that came from actually the customers who got to interact with the machine saying,
cool.
I want to buy this. And we told them the quickest way to get it is if you help us get there.
I love that.
So that was great because for us, it's a clever approach. A lot of people are thrown off by hardware if we're looking at the investment side.
Yeah.
So we essentially took a crowd equity approach initially during the pandemic.
What platform did you use?
Microventures out here in Austin.
Oh, cool. Nice. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So, we use that as a tool in a unique way that a lot of people say, I never thought of doing it like this.
Yeah.
We were doing it at a time that no one is really investing because pandemic started and you're nervous about your funds. You don't know what's going to happen. There is a sense of caution of everyone. And so we go to our customers saying, if you want this quicker, here's how you can do it. And for us to raise a decent bit then, is a statement, but I also showed, because it's coming from a lot of the customers, that it's a proof of conversion, it sets a valuation, it sets a term sheet that once it's over, that value is still set in stone. We can get other VCs and angels to jump in on that as well, and it shows investment interest, and first investor is always the hardest, right?
Yeah.
And it showed that, and it was a unique strategy and a unique way to leverage it, but it worked out really well. So
when you go into these funding rounds, let's take your seed round, for example, like when you're talking to these investors, like what are you pitching them? Like, this is the future of 3D printing. This is like, we're going to make $1 billion. Like, what is your main like cover slide kind of
now or then? If we're talking to investors,
I'm glad you said that because
there's a bit of difference.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that because I usually do ask that, and for some reason I didn't. So like, when you did your pre-seed versus your seed, what was the difference in like the pitch that you were bringing about?
There wasn't as much the pitch on the pre-seed, admittedly,
because
we had the concept, kind of showing them at that point we didn't even know how to pitch it properly because we were just saying we want to make a bigger, better printer. The objective wasn't to make an all-in-one solution printer, though. We realized kind of after we had made it and figured out the production line and everything that, hey, this is fast enough to be this type of printer. This can handle the carbon fibers to be this other type of printer, and we kind of realized, oh, this is a lot of printers.
Very cool. Yeah.
So I'm just making a really reliable functional printer in the first place because my frustrations are if printers not working. Of course, we wanted to make one that just worked. That was the main objective, and that was the only pitch with them. And like I said, they were early supporters. They wanted to be in it before we even announced it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then eventually, with the seed, it was, hey, investors want to make money, and in 3D printers, a lot less industry-specific investors as well, because it's in terms of how many people are populating it, a smaller industry, even though it's worth a decent bit.
Yeah.
And 96% of funding is software, 4% hardware, and then like 12 to 15% of that's like companies at the stage in terms of traction level where we were doing that.
Gotcha.
It was rough. So at that point, it was really trying to appeal to the investor of, here's the impact that we want to have, here's where we're going, here's our traction, here's the team behind it. And I mean, that was the biggest way. And at this point now, and because we've had a lot of leaks of that 2026 product, and that's something that people have deemed to be an impossibility for a while now.
So cool.
Because that leaked, I mean, it's been a very different story. And because of the traction we've been able to have as well, it's also been a different story in that. And we've had the pick of the litter in a bit of ways.
Very
I mean,
cool.
a lot of the folks that told us no early on have come back, and that's a great feeling to have. And
well, what was that an intentional leak or?
no.
Okay.
That was rough. I mean, mentor advisor that's been helping on that project for a while told it to a government party they knew someone would essentially function as CTO for a foreign party. And they told him, hey, there's a technology you might want to support or else it might compete with you. And they're like, okay, let's check this out. And they had a lot of information, and this is the 2026 product. They had a lot of information. I thought, oh, well, so working with them, what if we can make this? And they tried to. They spent a decent bit of money too before they closed the project short, saying this might not be possible.
Gotcha.
And then they're like, okay, well then we'll work with them. And then that leaked to that country's communist party, who was not a fan of it.
Okay.
And they've been sending threats and everything, saying this can really shake things up. We can't have this.
Gotcha.
So and then that's what started to make things public a bit. And on that front, then the folks that are really diligent in keeping up and finding a lot of that information, I have reached out. And it's been funny. I've had folks on interviews for some of the jobs we were hiring for, because it's been a completely different demographic after that leaked out.
Oh, gotcha.
Initially, it was just folks saying, yeah, I'm 3D printing's cool. I might be interested in this. To folks that would talk about that 2026 product without me even mentioning it. And you're like, oh, well, what about this? And I'm like, how do you find out about that?
Yeah. You're like,
then it's kind of scrambling for an excuse to try to find and trying to say something like, oh, it's on your LinkedIn. I scroll through it again. I don't think so.
Nice.
So you can tell who knows, but no, not intentional.
Well, now,
but it's had pros and cons.
Yeah,
so
very cool. We'll get to you as a founder. So, as a founder, what do you think your best? Well, we went through a lot of your best stuff. What do you think your worst skill is? You think as a founder or a CEO, either one?
Like my printers, I like to think of myself of a jack of all trades in a way. I'm not the best at each individual thing that I can encompass.
Okay. Yeah.
But I am good at them, and I'm good at being able to manage the folks that can do each of those functions better than I can.
Okay.
And I've had a track record of being able to attract good talent and also keep it. And I just build an environment that values people's inputs that they like to be in. But I think my worst skill in doing so, at least in terms of number quantity I could probably mention, is trying to be a bit more relatable. And just on the social aspect, because I've sacrificed so much of my life to just completely dive into the technicals. Not barely socializing with anyone for 4 years kind of screws you up, especially in younger developmental years. It's something I did have to pivot from, and I've been trying to make up for, but it eliminated a social circle, and I killed a lot of that in teenage life just for work with the previous business and even the current one. And there's been a lot of sacrifices, and they're ones honestly I'd be happy to make over again. But I'm dealing with them my own way. So when trying to be relatable to in the investor talks, that's when I'll start to see some of that stuff come up, because I get less technical, but I'm still giving impact and everything. But it's very much, this is strictly business, even though I need to lighten up.
Yeah, gotcha.
I need to lighten up. I need to be a little more expressive. So those are all things I've been working on, but I think that's my biggest one.
Do you mainly want to have investors that can speak your language, or do you just do you not really care?
Well, again, it's been like varying stories. I mean, it's always
Yeah.
been an investor that we can find additional value in.
Okay.
And when we were doing the rounds previously and in the future ones, they need to have some sort of active input other than just capital. Because at this point, especially with how disruptive we've been, with the traction we've had and the interest we've had, they're the ones winning in a lot of scenarios. So we need to find how they can make up for, a lot of times, the continuing difference in valuation as we progress after we open a round, as we progress week after week. How they make up for that a lot is partnership. We want something that's going to be strategic. We want something that's going to be of benefit, and we want something that's going to be great to have as a partner on the cap table. So, and when we've looked for it, it's been someone that can fit those things and provide something active. Less so if it's industry specific, because again, there's less in the industry, but if we can find some external value just from a personal level with them, that's going to be helpful, because there's some marketplace aspects, for example, with the 2026 product, and even though an investor initially looking at it might not think, marketplace, e-commerce, that kind of thing, that doesn't mean it's not in the roadmap at all, too.
Yeah.
So sometimes the very contrary or apparently opposite skill sets or experience that we'll have with some people that are going to be on the cap table can actually be really helpful. And sometimes that external perspective can really open up your eyes.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. Yeah, 'cause I feel like you're just getting investors from all angles. So at the end of the day, as long as they're helping you out and giving capital, that works.
Yeah. You gotta find the good ones. We've definitely had some learning experiences along the way too of partners that commit a lot and make a lot of promises and not fulfill them too. So it's really trying to screen them first, which has been the thing I've been trying to improve on.
Yeah.
With our team more, really screening them to make sure the absolute best for us, and there's something that's going to really hold them to it.
Good problem to have too many investors. Too many interested investors, at least.
That's one of the things. We've had a lot of interest come in as of late, especially the more traction we have, but I'm not sure when we need it.
Yeah.
Because we've built this thing to be so efficient. If we do 13 units in a month, we're profitable. Our least disruptive competition that started at the same kind of base plate that we did, with a price point that's 3 times higher than ours, was doing upwards of 20 units a month. So we made things so efficient that's unrealistically low, and it doesn't take much to be profitable, and we've have more than 10 times that amount of demand on a monthly basis. So
are you making like 100 of these things a month, or like what do you guys typically?
We're setting up the current production line to do closer to 150 a month.
Cool.
Hoping for that, and especially once people are trained and getting more proficient in each of the stations, it's going to go quicker.
Yeah.
But scaling up to that, because with little to no marketing, we've been seeing bad backlog issues.
That's so cool.
Already meeting current the future production capacity much, and then once there's marketing and actual sales effort put into it, it's might be a worse story.
Oh yeah, basically, quick math, you're just doing like 1 to 1.5 million a month in those. So that's insane. So do you need to raise in any capacity?
That's what I'm saying. Well, I was starting to touch on if we look at the 3-pring history, because again, I'm engrossed in it. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. I know what's happened. Some of the best products to hit the market have historically had large backlogs, and if it's a quality product that people like, the industry's willing to wait.
Gotcha.
There's been successful products that have sold, and people pay full upfront and wait over 6 months just hoping they get it.
Very cool.
We can likely subsidize any large growth that we need to do through backlog, or even debt on that side of things too, so we don't need to sell much more equity. But if we need to as well, there's definitely that interest there too. And you never want to burn a bridge. We're keeping those combos open. We're keeping some of the acquisition combos open, because you never know. And you want to keep on your pies. You never know who might be helping you later on, and cultivate the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, sweet. Do you have anything you want to close with? Are you guys hiring? Are you looking for a certain person to work with? Like, what are you looking for?
So we're concluding our current hiring wave, and we're going to be going through a bit of a bigger one starting in closer to October, November. So we're going to be hiring on that front. And on top of that, we're also really revving up for Duo Evo's launch. So keep an eye out for that.
There we go. Awesome, man. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
That's why we strive, man. Good stuff, Ethan. I wanted to thank you for watching this entire episode of Why We Strive. Be sure you head to whywestrive.com and subscribe so every Tuesday you can see incredible interviews with some of the best tech founders, investors, and creatives in the industry. Have an amazing day, and don't forget to keep striving.